AEW Dynasty 2025 is in the books, and oh my, we might have a situation on our hands here. Thank you to everyone who joined us and hung out tonight for the watch along. It was a lot of fun. And we were all hoping that tonight would mark the end of Jon Moxley's reign of terror in AEW. And in my predictions yesterday during the podcast on Saturday, I am terrific in my AEW predictions. I always just miss one match or no matches. And I was perfect all the way up until the main event. And yesterday in the predictions, I predicted originally Jon Moxley to retain. And I cited all of my reasons why. I just feel like whatever end game they had originally planned for when this started, this isn't it. So if they are going to put the belt on Swerve tonight, that means they're going to have to change their creative plans. And I was actually fine with that because I'm kind of with all of the fans on this, is that he's kind of overstaying his welcome, this Moxley run. It's just not hitting the way we kind of thought it would hit. If this thing was over like Rover, then I wouldn't care how long it lasted. But it's just not. And a lot of fans are growing tired of it. We haven't even visualized that AEW championship in like 7 months. And you know, it's an angle that I think in AEW's mind, they're waiting for this big payoff when Moxley wins. It's kind of like when Sting beat Hogan. You know, I think they're hoping for this big moment at All In, but you're really asking the fans to have a lot of patience. And patience is one trait that the wrestling fans do not have. I've been witnessing their lack of patience with my own eyes for 40 years. It does not exist. They don't have it. They can't do it. You can't ask them to be patient about anything, much less something that's not very good like this. And I think that's what you're going to see from the fans tonight. You know, that is going to be the reaction. A lot of people are not going to be happy about this, and they're going to have a lot of complaints. And, you know, with me, I'm going to be in agreement with that for the most part, but I'm also going to devil's advocate a little bit and say that, well, if the payoff is something tremendous, you know, that's what the only thing that would save it for me is that whatever they do is, you know, you got to assume now at All In, that it satisfies us to where we're happy that the run is over and we're excited about it and we share in the moment and we're not frustrated that it took too long to get there, you know? And I feel that's what Tony Khan is now playing with. You know, he's playing with fire here. He's really got a bank that when Moxley loses that title, it's going to be worth that wait. Like really, really delicious dessert. You know, it's going to be worth it. I promise. You got to wait for it. But if it doesn't hit, if Moxley just loses and he loses it All In and it's a match that's super predictable, you know, by this point, you're like, okay, it's definitely going to end now. And then it ends. You're like, okay, it ended. We're happy, but you should have done it with Swerve or whatever. So I just don't want that to be the reaction when it finally happens. When Moxley finally drops this damn championship, I hope that it's something that we all enjoy. And I'm worried that that's not going to be the case. They're really, really taking a risk here. So I think the backlash will be pretty large. We'll see, you know, what, I mean, the ratings don't mean anything now. These numbers are so discombobulated with the streaming and everything, but we'll see if there's any noticeable slip in the ratings, you know, because back when Hogan, I felt like was overstaying his welcome in the NWO, fans liked the NWO, but they really hated Hogan. They were so sick of him, you know, because he just sucked, you know, and he was carrying the belt, and he was in that interesting situation where he was a wrestler that nobody liked, but he was in a faction that everybody loved. And so a lot of times when he would win pay-per-view after pay-per-view, the ratings would go up, you know, because they'd tune in just to see what the asshole was doing. And I don't feel like that's the same thing here. I don't feel like fans are going to tune in on Wednesday because, you know, they're hoping that somebody's finally going to stand up to Moxley. No, they're just over it completely. So if Mox was going to retain here, he was going to have a major trick up his sleeve. I ran through this whole entire scenario yesterday in the predictions where I had, because of the interaction that we saw on Dynamite between Swerve and Hangman, where Swerve admitted that he deserved getting his house burned down, that was going to be the seed planted for Hangman to come out and not screw him, but help him. And some people thought, like, try to help him, but then accidentally screw him. I'm like, no, then they would have just had him screw him straight, not accidentally screw him. So I felt like he was going to come out unsure of what he was going to do and have an opportunity to hit either guy with like a chair. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. He came out, and except instead of a chair, it was a buckshot lariat. And you could see he started looking at Mox and he was going to do it. And I'm like, he's going to do it to Mox. He's going to do it to Mox. And then Pac interrupted him, you know, but then in the end, he ended up grabbing a hold of Mox and hitting him with the Deadeye and helping Swerve seemingly win. I thought that was going to be it. He hits him with the Swerve stomp and crawls so slowly to get over. I'm like, man, he's crawling too slow. And the lights go out. And when they come back on, it's the Young Bucks standing on either side of Swerve in BTE trigger position. Boom. Nails him. Moxley retains. And that's what I said yesterday. He's going to retain. This doesn't feel like it's the end. But I made myself change my mind, citing my excellent percentage when it comes to predicting AEW pay-per-views. I'm fucking the man at that. So I said, well, if I predict every other match right, if I predict Swerve, that should mean that should be right too. And that was a stupid thing to think because it was not right. And Jon Moxley is still the AEW briefcase holder. Oh, man. So, yeah. And what makes this all worse is that, unlike Revolution, I was sucking that pay-per-view off. I loved that show. I had a blast watching that thing all the way up until the end. And that pay-per-view, those matches, especially that cage match that sticks out, everything great on Revolution, was so good that I didn't give a shit that Moxley retained. I wasn't mad. I didn't want Cope to win the title. I thought Moxley should beat him. So when he did, the pay-per-view stayed great for me. But once I was done with my review and I went online, I'm like, oh my God, I'm the only one that's kind of like, to this pay-per-view. Everybody's really, really mad. And that's kind of telling that, that something like that can ruin a whole show for you because that pay-per-view was great. And the fact that one match, an outcome that we shouldn't even we should not have had Cope winning the championship. But people are so fed up with Moxley, they were just mad in general that he won. And it legitimately ruined the entire pay-per-view for them. And I thought that was ridiculous. This time, it's a little bit different because I don't think this pay-per-view was as strong as Revolution. We had good matches. Everything was solid. Nothing was weak. Everything was solid. But in terms of Revolution quality, not even close. And then when you put this disappointing finish on top of that, at least the previous show had the strength of the undercard to kind of justify, okay, Moxley won, get the fuck over it. But now, I'm one of the more level-headed people. And there's not too many of me. We don't grow on trees in the IWC. So you're not going to hear too many of me not freaking out. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people freaking out, especially other people who do what I do. So I'm going to try not to freak out, but Tony Khan, it better be worth it, my man. It better be worth it. Because if it's not, I think you've potentially done some damage. You got tickets to sell. You got to sell that all in. And I mean, are you really going to be able to sell that to an audience of cynics who are probably not going to be able to see the writing on the wall? That's what happened to them with Cena. I think of SummerSlam 2004. This is a great comparison, actually. SummerSlam 2014, I was doing commentaries, doing videos, and I said, this is great. When Daniel Bryan got hurt and Cena won the championship, I said, he's going to pass it to Brock. Because that's what was going to happen if Bryan didn't get hurt. So Cena just filled in as champion. And I'm like, this is better. Brock beating John Cena for the championship is way better than Brock beating Daniel Bryan. But the fans were so fixated on their hate for John Cena and the fact that he wins all the time, I was a moron for thinking that Brock would beat John Cena. What are you talking about? Cena never loses. I'm like, you can't be that blind. I'm like, they're pretty much telling us what's going to happen here. But people were so ingrained in that belief that Super Cena all the time and he had won just too many matches for them. Now they can't even think clearly. And I was like, y'all, just listen to me here. Nope, good mic work. You're an idiot. You're John Cena cocksucker, whatever. All the things they were calling me back then. And I'm like, he's going to beat him. And then he did, just like I said. And he beat him even worse than I thought. And that was a great moment, but the fans didn't believe it was going to happen. So now if you have that same situation with Moxley and you've got tickets to sell and you've got an audience now just so turned off by it, I'm not going to buy a ticket to watch him retain again. But then you can have people like me saying, no, he's going to lose it this time. No, fuck you, Greg. No, he's not. He's always going to win. It's going to be the same shit. It's going to be Death Riders coming out and blah, 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 blah. And that's just what's going to happen. That's what they're going to say. And that could potentially cost you tickets. Tony Khan, you got to know your audience. They are crazy. None of them are stable, except us. Like everybody in the chat, we're awesome. We're the best. Me and 184 of you, all 185 of us. Fucking the best. Best wrestling fans you can ask for. The rest of them, not so much. So you are risking a lot by continually doing this. Plus, it's not like these shows are on Max and Peacock. We're paying $50 a pop for these things. So it's not like they're free. So I do not mind dropping the money down. But some fans might. Some fans might look at this as a complete waste of money. I tuned in. I thought Swerve was going to win. He didn't. I wasted my $50. Well, it's a gamble, But I feel like I don't have to be online right now to know what online is saying. So I'll kind of look at that later. So you kind of know that if I'm disappointed, think about what the IWC must be doing. If they're leaping off of bridges. If I'm just like slightly disappointed, their heads are on fire. So yeah. We'll see. All right, let me get to the chat here, see what we're saying. We're going to start running through this pay-per-view. Yeah, Mania 39 finish. I'm going to go up to the top and make sure I didn't miss any. Nope, I got you. Juliet, got you there. Mike, I got you. Ryan Adams, thanks for the 2. Mania 39 finish. It kind of was. That was the question going in. Was tonight going to be Mania 39 or Mania 40 for Swerve? And it was 39. Daniel Malcolm, the Bucks, Mike Witt. Now imagine if Jack Perry is the wild card and beats Hangman. Oh, that'll be lovely. My God. All right, let me get to the results of AEW Dynasty. And we definitely died nasty tonight. My God, with that finish. All right, well, excuse me. In terms of my predictions, like I said, I got one match wrong. That was the main event. The rest of them I got right. However, I was not aware of the 2 0-hour matches. We had Nick Wayne and Crew. They defeated AR Fox and Top Flight in a trios match to open up the show there. And then Max Caster came out to do his open challenge bit, and it was answered by Anthony Bowens, who had Billy Gunn with him, and he beat Max Caster in 40 seconds. So I wasn't aware of those matches, so I didn't predict them, but so they don't count. But the rest of the card I predicted yesterday, with the exception of one match, Kyle Fletcher and Mark Briscoe. I was not aware was on the card tonight. So before that match, I predicted during the live stream Kyle Fletcher. So I got all the matches right except for that damn main event. But the show opened, the main card opened up with the first round of the Owen Hart tournament. It's now underway, by the way, and one of those matches opened up. It was Will Ospreay defeating Kevin Knight. Kind of predictable there. Kevin Knight filling in for the injured Jay White. Really, really fun match. Kevin Knight's going to be fun. He had interest from WWE, chose to sign with AEW. Hopefully for him, that turns out to be the right decision. So far, it appears to be. I feel like where he might fit in NXT wise, or the shuffle that you could potentially get lost in over there, or you can just jump right into the fray, be on TV every week, and have pay-per-view matches against Will Ospreay. So probably the right call there. Wish him the best. The Hurt Syndicate was out to defend their tag team titles against the Learning Tree, and we did mention MJF being a part of this. And I said in the predictions that, I don't think the Hurt Syndicate need MJF to help them beat the Learning Tree, but maybe MJF tries to help them in their match against FTR in the future, and then he screws up and FTR wins the tag team titles. That's kind of something I pitched, but I had, didn't think that MJF really needed to be out there tonight, but he did come out. He showed up at ringside, and I think he nailed Big Bill with the ring, I think, and Lashley and Shelton were not happy about that. They were pissed, but they disposed of and finished off Big Bill and Brian Keith in the ring and retained the championship. And this kind of just intensifies the heat, I guess, with Bob and Max. And I don't know if Maxwell's going to find his way in the Hurt Syndicate the way he's acting, but we'll probably get more on that situation on Wednesday. We had Mercedes Moné defeating Julia Hart. Pretty good match here. Better than I kind of maybe thought it would be, although Julia Hart's very good. She's so young and so good. And this match was good. It was pretty predictable. Last night you had that tag with with Athena and, oh my God, what's her face, getting the win in that tag. So you kind of knew that it was how these matches were going to go. And there's no way that Mercedes is going to lose to Julia when you got Athena on that same bracket. They're going to meet in the semifinals for sure. So Mercedes beat Julia Hart to advance in the Owen, and the match was not bad at all. The AEW Trios Championships were on the line. This was kind of predictable, and I liked what we saw. We had the Death Riders defending against Rated FTR. We've seen all of the dissension with Rated FTR lately. Dax has kind of been going off the deep end a bit. He shoved the referee and his own partner a couple weeks ago, paid off the referee a $10,000 fine to him personally, tried to apologize to Cash. He really wasn't having it. And I'm looking at these two, and I'm like, they're not going to split up the Death Riders, or FTR, excuse me. They're not going to split them up because there is no room whatsoever for Dax and Cash as single stars in that AEW locker room, in my opinion. So I felt like if there's going to be a split of any kind here, it's got to be the two of them turning on Cope together. And that's pretty much what we saw. They fall short in their attempt. I didn't know if this was going to happen during the match or after the match. It wound up happening after the match. When Wheeler Yuta was the one that got the pin. I think he pinned Dax, but there was also kind of like a stolen tag in the match where I think Cash went to tag Cope, but Dax stole it and then got in the ring and then wound up getting himself pinned. So after the match, Copeland and FTR kind of help each other up. They're hugging, but you can tell. I mean, they're telegraphing the hell out of this. So you can tell there's something's going to happen here. And Dax grabs a hold of Copeland, hits him with a pile driver, and then Cash. And I'm calling it out. I'm like, it's got to be the two of them turning on him because it would make no sense for them to split FTR. So if Cash is acting like he's mad, he's fronting. And he was fronting. He acted all concerned for Edge. And then Dax went out and got a chair. And he kind of told Cash to do the honors with the concerto. And first he doesn't want to, but then they hit the shatter machine on Cope. The turn is official. And then they hit him with two concertos, and which essentially is probably going to write him off of TV for, maybe a short amount of time. And what I had pitched in the predictions, and a lot of people are predicting Christian and Cope reuniting. That's pretty common, but I'm kind of going one step further, and I'm putting the titles on the line here. And I think this thing that they're setting up with MJF and the Hurt Business, you can now book FTR against the Hurt Syndicate. I'm sorry. Book FTR against the Hurt Syndicate, and then MJF costs them the match by either reuniting with his former cohorts there, FTR, or attempting to help Hurt Syndicate, and he fucks up, and they wind up losing the belts to FTR. Then you can have FTR take those titles into All In, where Cope and Christian can reunite and win the AEW Tag Team titles. So that's what I'm hoping they do there with those guys. But the turn is complete. I did like that, but again, that was predictable. So far, the matches have been all solid. Ospreay and Knight was good. Learning Tree and Hurt Syndicate didn't suck. Mercedes and Julia was fine. Death Riders, and Rated FTR, the match was fine, but the turn was pretty good. So up until now, everything's just been good, but nothing too spectacular. My socks were already blown off by this point at Revolution. Up next was Timeless Toni Storm, my favorite current wrestler in AEW. It's her and Swerve for me. They're my top two favorites right now. She was defending against Megan Bayne, and I said it was funny how I was talking myself through this as we were watching. And I kind of mentioned this in the predictions as well. Toni Storm, I believed, was going to win here, and I thought they did a really excellent job of building Megan Bayne up as not only a credible challenger, but a real threat to Toni Storm. And so during the match, I was saying this match is going to go one of two ways. She's either going to be Super Cena or she's going to be Bret Hart. She's either going to take all of this punishment from this big, giant Megan Bayne, just like Bret did against Diesel at Survivor Series 95, and then she's going to catch her with a small package and win the match. Or she's going to play the role of Super Cena and beat Megan Bayne the way Cena beats people like Umaga. And those were the two scenarios I had in my head. I said it's either going to be a small package or she's just going to Super Tony herself into this match. And I felt like Super Tonying her way through it would have been fine because I think she's AEW's top star. I mean, it's her and Swerve, really. I think they're the two top names in the company right now, but I might give Toni the slight edge as the top overall star in the company. So I would have no problem with her snatching the turnbuckle off of the ring post and wrapping the fucking cord around Megan Bayne's neck and choking her out. I would have been fine with that. And that's the way I thought it was going to be because she finally got Megan Bayne down, hit her with 3 hip attacks. Oh, and by the way, we should mention there was a really ugly spot where it was kind of like a top rope belly to belly or something, and Megan Bayne came down really hard on her head, but when you watch the replay, it was more of her face. So thank God she was okay there, but it was a really scary looking bump. So she survived that. Then she survives 3 hip attacks. Then Toni Storm hits her finisher, and the girl kicks out at 1. So I thought that was going to be the end. I'm like, okay, Super Tony's going to win. 1, 2, 3. Oh, she kicked out at 1. Then Toni has to catch her in a small package, and the Bret Hart option is the one that came true here. And Toni Storm rolled up Megan Bayne, beat her in about 15 minutes in a really fun match. It was way better, I think, than Mercedes and Julia, and that wasn't a bad match. But Timeless Toni and Megan Bayne was really fun, and I'm sure that's probably going to set up another match because Megan really kind of had Toni beat there. It was a small package that won it. Incidentally, Penelope Ford ran out there, and then Luther grabbed her and ran off with her over his shoulders, which is pretty funny. Up next was another Owen Hart Cup tournament match. Kyle Fletcher taking on Mark Briscoe. This match went a little longer than I thought, maybe like 5 minutes longer than maybe I think it should have, but it was good. But Kyle Fletcher just came off that insane cage match, which I still can't get over last month against Will Ospreay. This was okay. Big buckle, brainbuster, disgusting, sick-ass looking finisher. Hit Briscoe with that for the win. Fletcher is definitely going to advance there. I like Fletcher a lot. Happy he picked up the win there. Bandito was up next in his mask versus title match against a Ring of Honor champion, Chris Jericho. They had Bandito's mother and sister there in the front row. Jericho talking mad shit to them all match. This one was pretty easy to predict. The minute this match was made, I said, well, there's who Jericho is going to lose that belt to finally. So I wasn't surprised here at the result, but they did the fake finish here, which I didn't think was necessary. Jericho brought out the bat that was hidden, tucked in between the ring and the stairs, pulls it out, nails Bandito in the face when the referee is distracted, covers Bandito, and wins the match. And I'm like, they're not, and I wasn't believing it. Like when it was happening, I'm like, nope, something's going to happen here. We got to get a referee coming out. They're not going to unmask Bandito. They're not going to do that. With his family there, they just ran a 9-minute long fucking video package about the importance of the luchador mask. You know, they're not gonna unmask him. So I'm like, what are we doing? Why is Jericho's music playing? Why is he announced as the winner? What's happening here? And then finally, Aubrey Edwards appears. She's talking to the mom and the sister at ringside. She brings them into the ringside area, and they're pointing. Like, they can't just tell Aubrey this and she can go get it herself. They have to bring both of them over, and they're like, looking, they could have planted it for all we know. And they're pointing there, and then the referee sees it, and then he orders the match be restarted. And it just took about 30 seconds for Bandito to get a hold of Jericho and put him down and win the match. But I think, like, doing the false finish there, they didn't even need to do that because they damn near gave me a heart attack there. But I'm like, no, there's no way. There's no way. They're not going to unmask him. Fuck off. So they didn't. Daniel Garcia defended his TNT championship up next against Adam Cole. This one was kind of predictable. They had already had the 2 battles, and you kind of felt like you knew which direction this was going. Adam Cole needs to hold some gold in the company, and Garcia's had a fair enough run, I think, with the championship now. Hasn't done a lot with it. You know, the TNT title's kind of been an afterthought lately in the company. So Adam Cole, I would really like to see a resurgence in Adam Cole. He's one of my favorites ever. And he just doesn't feel like the same Adam Cole from a few years ago. I don't know why. I know he's had some injuries. I know he's dealt with a lot. Probably a lot of this is out of his hands. You know, it's sad to see your favorites kind of slow down. We're watching that with Kenny. Kenny is still Kenny, but you can tell he's not Kenny, you know, and it's just, that's what happens. You know, eventually it happens to all. Brett wasn't Brett. Shawn wasn't Shawn. Taker certainly wasn't Taker. And Garcia and Cole isn't broken down by any means. It's just, you know, he felt like a main eventer when he was in NXT. And when he came into AEW, I was like, oh, he's going to fucking rule here. But, you know, injuries and, you know, it's nobody's fault really. It's just kind of sad. But I was happy that he got the win here, won the TNT championship over Garcia. There was the handshake. Garcia didn't hit him or nothing. He looked very, very upset that he lost, but show of respect there at the end. I like that. Kenny Omega in I would definitely say the best match of the night has to go to the 31-minute three-way dance between Kenny Omega, Ricochet, and Speedball Mike Bailey. This was all kinds of fun. They were all over the place here. Some of the barricade spots they were doing, just walking that thing, taking bumps on it, all the shit they did on the table. all of the 450s, every damn move, every kick, every strike, every hold. It was phenomenal. Ricochet, my favorite part of the entire match was Ricochet kind of pulling the rock, you know. He gets on the headset there and he starts talking right to the camera using the announcer's headset. And much like the Tony Storm kick on Collision, it was this really tight shot on his face, and just in comes Mike Bailey's foot. Boom! Knocks the headphones clean off his face, and then Ricochet falls back and he's selling it like a cartoon, like his eyes are googly, like he's Elon Musk on ketamine. And he's just, he doesn't know what the fuck's going on. And then Bailey picks up the headset to talk in it, but it's broke because his kick broke it. Broke it right off the face of Ricochet. That was tremendous. In the end, it was Ricochet taking the pin. Like I said, even in the predictions, I said I think Ricochet's going to eat the pin, and he did. Fun match, fun match. Kenny Omega retains the championship, and kind of a predictable ending there because, you know, Kenny just won the championship. He's not going to just drop it right now. What do you win it for? And then when the match was over, out came Kazuchika Okada. Coin drop, fans popped. It was great. Kind of planting the seed there. Next pay-per-view is going to be Double or Nothing. So I feel like this match is going to be all in. So whatever they do, it needs to go beyond Double or Nothing. I don't think they're going to, I guess they got to book something for Double or Nothing. You know, maybe they do. Maybe this is a series of matches, or maybe just two. Maybe just two. Maybe they wrestle at Double or Nothing and there's some sort of wonky finish and then they agree to unify the belts. No, I think All In needs to be the one match. So we'll see how they somehow get not book this match for Double or Nothing. I don't know, but at least they have the seeds planted there. And of course, that left us with our lovely main event, Jon Moxley defending the AEW Championship against Swerve Strickland. In my predictions yesterday, I predicted Jon Moxley to retain. The reason I predicted that is because I want Swerve to win. I like Swerve. He's my favorite wrestler currently in the company in AEW right now. But the reason I gave was because whatever end game or whatever payoff they had in mind when Moxley won the title, it's not here yet. They have something else in mind. So if they're going to put the belt on Swerve tonight, that means Tony Khan needs to hear the fans not being happy about this and decide to make a creative pivot. And I questioned whether or not he was going to do that. But since I'm so good at predicting these damn things, I decided mid-sentence to change my pick to say, no, Swerve's going to do it. I feel like Tony Khan would be making a big risk by having Moxley retain in the same ass way that he always does. And I don't know if they're going to have the patience for that. And the reason for that is because think of how mad they were after Revolution. And that was a match Moxley should have won. I did not want Cope to win the title last month. Fuck that. So Moxley winning was the right thing. And the right thing pissed people off. So that's very telling. Tony Khan needs to know his audience. It's a bunch of unbalanced anger boys. 90% of them. They don't handle shit well. Hell, I'm pissed. And I'm level-headed. So think about what they're going through right now. And so I was hoping that Tony Khan would say, okay, we better change direction here. Swerve is our most over guy. All of the fans want to see him world champion. So let's just, sorry, Mox, I know we had this whole thing planned for All In, but I don't know if our audience is going to have the patience for that. So let's take the belt off of you now. It's going to go to Swerve. We'll figure something else out for All In. That was what it was going to have to take tonight. And based on the entrance Swerve got, I was like, man, it looked like it was in his eyes. I felt like he felt it. It just, I always watch the body language, you know, and I'm like, I feel like he's going to win. You know, he just had this really focused look on his face. But then when the match started, it was a really slow start. Remember, they're doing a lot of mat wrestling. And there was a table bump out there early. Swerve got busted open a bit. There was a Meteora or Swerve stomp, one or the other, through the announce table from the top of the ladder, which was pretty good to okay. And they were doing some stuff, but it was just like an okay match. So throughout the match, I'm like, this match is feeling a lot like Moxley and Cope. What can save it is Swerve winning here in the end. So let's see if we're going to get to that spot that I predicted yesterday where Hangman Page comes out and he's not quite sure what he's going to do. And then Hangman Page came out and he wasn't quite sure what he was going to do, although instead of a weapon or a chair, he's on the outside of the ring deciding who to buckshot lariat. And then in comes Pac, stops him, and then Page has to fight off the Death Riders. Then he winds up dead-eyeing Jon Moxley. And that was going to be it. Now, everybody's powdered out. All that's left is Swerve and Moxley. This is exactly how I laid it out in the predictions. And then the goddamn lights go out. And you knew it wasn't going to be good. It wasn't going to be good for Swerve. And I was thinking, oh God, is Nana going to turn? If the lights are going out, who is it going to be? The lights come up, and it's the Young Bucks. And they already have a hold of Swerve in a BT trigger position. Boom, they nail him. Jon Moxley pins him, retains the championship, and the internet is shitting its pants. Good job, Tony Khan. I defend you, but sometimes you make it hard, bro. I'm still going to try to be the realistic one here and say, storyline-wise, I get why he retained, but you have to also, stick to your creative guns while listening to the audience at the same time. If you've got this great grand story, that's fine, but if it's being rejected, you have to at least think about changing that. WWE used to have this problem. They were stubborn as all fuck when it came to stuff like this. The louder they complained about somebody winning, the more that person won. And I've always said that about Triple H, and that's when I can kind of see his booking falling off a little bit. People are starting to point it out and criticize him. And I was like, there used to be a time where Triple H did not have our best interest in mind. Back in those Authority days, I swear to you, he enjoyed when we were mad. Remember that promo? I'm going to go in line with my buddy Mark and complain or whatever. He dislikes the audience, And so when they were like pissing us off and the fans were getting more and more riled up, I think there was a part of him that got a perverse enjoyment out of that, knowing, they're going to tune in anyway. He hated us, and now there's a completely new Triple H where it's all about the fans and the show we put on and stuff. So I'm not so surprised that, this is happening, in WWE. But think about how bad it used to be, with John Cena. Like, we're just going to keep putting them over. Doesn't matter how much they complain, they're still going to be here. And I don't ever want AEW to have that fucking mentality. No, we're fine. Our sickos are never going to leave us. We can afford this. Don't think that way. You got to think about the audience, and then you got to hope, at least in Tony Khan's mind, okay, guys, I hear you. But in Tony Khan's mind, he better be knowing for sure that what I got in store for him is going to blow him away. It's going to make all of this worth it. Just wait. And you never know. He could have a Bryan Danielson return in his back pocket. We got a big wild card in that Owen tournament. We don't know who it is. It's facing Hangman Page. But you got Hangman, you got Ospreay, you have Swerve, you have a possibly returning Danielson. Somebody's going to get him. We know that. And we know now the absolute latest, this is confirmation of it, the absolute latest that it's going to be for Moxley to drop that title is All In. That's the place now. I feel like he's probably going to have to, we're going to have to go through this shit again at Double or Nothing. There's got to be one more pay-per-view. And unless that's where it is, Darby is currently on his way to Mount Everest. He's doing this right now over the next couple of weeks. So by the end of the month, he's going to be done with Everest, assuming he survives. It might not be All In. It might be Double or Nothing. They might just book Darby and Mox at Double or Nothing and just beat him right there. And then Darby defends against the Owen Hart winner at All In and beats him. Maybe that's what they're fucking doing. But I felt like all the way back last year, it was going to be Darby because Darby was kind of in line to win the title. Wasn't it going to be Darby beating Danielson or something like that? Or Darby maybe beating Swerve, then the belt went to Danielson, then to Mox, and like Darby's run was put on hold. And I'm like, okay, they'll just wait until after Everest. So Darby absolutely should win the AEW title, but he's been gone for so long. But he's definitely over enough to where he should definitely hold the title. But, he hasn't been present really. So is Moxley just holding it for Darby? That might be what they're doing. And if that's the case, everybody loves Darby, but everybody loves Swerve, and Swerve would have been just as good as Darby. And Swerve ain't climbing any mountains. He's here right now, working hard, doing a great job. Fantastic talent on the mic, in the ring. He's got all the tools. Looks like a star. I feel like putting the belt on him tonight would have really pleased a lot of people. But it did not. Moxley retains. My God. But it's been nearly a 5-hour stream, or it is a 5-hour. We've been going over 5 hours now, so I think we're going to wrap it up. But I will hit some super chats here before we get out of here. The Juliet title of Solid Monsters Review. Once again, this company has completely lost the plot. Yeah. Well, no, I kind of disagree with that. I think the problem is they're sticking with the plot. The plot's just not very good. This plot of the Death Riders holding the championship briefcase, or the championship in the briefcase, sucks. But the plot has not been lost. They're still clinging to that fucking plot that we hate. They need to change the plot. And they had the chance to change it tonight, and they did not. But, oh my God. My God. But I definitely agree with that in general. I'm sure Solid Monster and a lot of people are very unhappy about tonight, and I'm going to be in agreement with that because I'm not either. This is going to be one of the rare times where I'm not stepping to defend this. You know, I can understand why Moxley retained. I'll go that far. I understand why. Because they obviously have something else in mind, and this just wasn't it. But your audience is being very vocal and very loud. We don't like this bullshit. End it. So the fans don't really have much patience. The good news here is it's going to end soon. You know, if they just bring Darby right back and do it at Double or Nothing, then it's done. Very latest, we'll be All In. That's the latest. He will not retain it All In. Moxley, I promise you right now that Moxley will not walk out of All In with that championship and that briefcase. It will not happen. That I promise you. And if you know anything about me, I sometimes predict this stuff right. So I promise you that. But you're still asking a lot of patience, and I don't blame the fans for being a wee bit butthurt today. You kind of have every reason to have a sore anus. It's cool. Chris Ludek, thanks, bro, for the 5. Mox and Tony's booking is killing AEW. Predictable match with interference and repetitive spots. Mox just can't wrestle, and his jiu-jitsu is trash also. Well, I feel like the piling on is going to happen now. People didn't have too much of a problem with Moxley like in the ring until he just starts winning too much. And that's just kind of, so I'm going to stay away from that. I don't think Moxley's necessarily a bad wrestler or anything like that, but he's not the most exciting for sure. And you would know, Chris, you train in that stuff, so you can see when somebody's ass. So if you're going to call out his shit jujitsu, then I'm going to believe you on that. But in terms of his ability to work as a top guy, I do think he has that. But now you're talking about his 4th AEW title run, and he's having these type of wins, that we've seen with a lot of people in the past, and it really kind of rubs the fans the wrong way when it's the same stuff. I think in AEW's mind, they thought throwing the Bucks out there would make it different, but it still was the end same result. Moxley retains. And it's getting old. I'll be checking around the community here tonight and see how livid people are getting. That's funny. Mike Witt, appreciate the 5. Solid Monsters going off on Tony Khan right now. It's awesome. Double or Nothing. We're getting anarchy in the arena, aren't we? Yeah, we probably are getting anarchy for real in the arena with the fans, especially if Moxley retains again. You're going to get some serious rioting anarchy. But there's a large portion of the audience that has a hate boner for Tony Khan. And so I'm not going to allow them to whack off to my material. So I agree that Swerve winning was a huge disappointment, but I'm not going to go on some big rant on Tony Khan because I don't want people jerking off to me. So I'm not going to do that. But I think there's a lot of people with those hate boners that are going to be rubbing them hard tonight to people who are very unhappy. Ryan Adams, thanks for the 5. It usually takes 2 months to climb Everest, so I could see Moxley retaining All In. Oh, really? In 2 months? I thought it was just weeks. I thought it'd be done by the end of April. I think he's done by Double or Nothing. He's not missing Double or Nothing. However long it takes, he'll be here by Double or Nothing, provided he survives. Juliet, is it Fiend, Rollins, Hell in a Cell level of livid? It's the same but different. It's a different level of livid. That was pretty stupid. It's the same, probably. The whole thing about the DQ but WWE was just doing so many stupid things by that point. It was just, this I think is just kind of like a kick in the gut. Like, when is this going to end? And it's going to keep going. So enjoy your evening tonight. Thank you so much for being here for the watch along and the review. I think AEW made a mistake tonight. They should have put Swerve over. I think, if the backlash gets crazy enough, maybe you can get Tony Khan to do what WWE did with Daniel Bryan in 2014 and just say, okay, let's just make a hard change here. Let's put him over, shut these fuckers up. So maybe if you do an Occupied Dynamite thing where Swerve's like, all right, enough of this shit. And then Moxley comes out, fine, I'll defend the title right now, asshole. And then Swerve beats him right there on Wednesday, then cool. All is well in the world. But I feel like you're now asking us to wait a long time for this thing to end, and fans are losing their patience, and I don't blame them. So anyway, thanks again for being here. I appreciate it. Let's see. Tomorrow night for Raw, I will not be here. I'm actually going to be at work. So Raw, if anything super notable happens, I'll come up on Tuesday, drop a mic drop on you because I'm off. I'll have plenty of time to do that. If Raw's a dud and Raw sucks, I'm not going to do that. So I'm only going to do that if we get something decent, tomorrow night. Sorry, I won't be here for that. But you'll be hitting the YouTube shorts and all that nonsense this week, and I got a big weekend planned for us next weekend with watch-alongs and 15-year anniversary stuff. Lots going on this week, so make sure you stay tuned. Have a great night. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll catch you soon this week at some point, just not sure when. Take care. Peace.